let's talk about O365 tenant restrictions. So tenant restriction comes in a couple of different places. The first place we need to do is configure our tenant profile. In this case, I say my tenant profile for O365 is called Welsh Geek. Cloud application is Microsoft Logon Services. I define my tenant, which is my Azure AD tenant ID, and my O365 tenants defined here as welshgeek.net. And so what's going to happen next is when I go to access O365, I'll have to log in. And as part of that login, that will be SSL inspected, and Zscaler will inject the right tenant restriction headers that O365 will be aware of and allow only those authenticated domains to go through. So it's predicated on two things. The first thing, we have SSL inspection. So I have the O365 one-click configured, but I need to specifically inspect the M365 logon pages. So there's a cloud application defined for inspection, and we're going to inspect this traffic. And then under our URL and cloud app control policy, we have a number of different services we're going to allow and deny based on policy. And then under the Microsoft login services, we're going to allow it, but make sure that that tenant profile we defined is applied. So if I go ahead and I'll open up an incognito browser here, and I'll go to my Outlook O365 tenant. It's going to redirect me to authenticate. Again, I'll enter my credentials. Because it's an isolated container, it's not going to do transparent single sign-on, so it'll prompt me for my credentials. I'll get prompted for multi-factor authentication again, and I'll log in, and now I can access my O365. So if we close this out and we come across to our tenant profiles, we'll go profiles, let's make a change here. Let's remove welshgeek.net. I don't want the user to access that domain, and we'll just say welshgeek.com. to synthesize a different domain that is the only domain I should be allowed access to. If we redo that logon, let's go to Outlook again. Again, it's going to prompt me to authenticate. I'll enter my credentials. But actually, before multi-factor authentication has been triggered, it's applied that tenant restriction policy and says, hey, you're not allowed to sign into the welshgeek.net tenant because Zscaler has injected into those headers that the only tokens that should be issued by the Azure AD authentication process are for the welshgeek.com domain, and that's not what I'm accessing. So I've been flat refused access.